What's up, YouTube? Um, I'm not doing that. Okay, okay. All right. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Coach to Coach podcast. I'm Coach Joe. This is my coach and partner, Kevin, ShredQuest. Let's just get right into it, dude. How have you been?
Doing good, hanging in there. Same shit, different day.
Pretty much. Just a
How about
grind.
yourself?
Good, yeah. Wrapping up a deload week. It feels like we just had one not too long ago, but I'm kind of liking the frequent deloads. I can feel the wear and tear, start to develop as we go longer periods without one. So I'm liking it, feeling fresh. No soreness, no pains, nothing like that. I'm just, ready to get right back into it where we left off.
Yeah, yeah. Deloads is something that I've gone back and forth about. Like, I think for the most part, if you're managing things through the course of your training block, you maybe shouldn't need a deload. But on the other hand, like it can just be a preventative thing, a prophylactic thing that you throw in. And I don't think that deload should be required like every 4 weeks or something like that, but maybe every 8 to 12 weeks. You just have a week where you go in and you don't aim to progress anything. You don't have any intensifiers like drop sets, past failure sets, and maybe you just match the last week's loads and reps. Maybe you peel off a set from like some of your highest cost exercises like your hack squats, your deadlifts, shit like that, right? And you just have a little bit of a refresher. Some people just say, hey, I don't want to go into the gym and train half ass. Like, I'm just not going to train. And I think that makes sense too. But, for me, like that, for me personally, in my opinion, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because I feel like having that week off can just put you so far back that you kind of lose some of the skill associated with some of these lifts. And then also that first week back in, you end up getting pretty sore after that. So my thought process with deloads is just don't push on that week. Pull back, especially on any movements where you got like kind of aches and pains, and use that week almost as because you're not pushing, you're not trying to go to the next level. Use that week as like a skill week where you're like really saying, okay, I'm not really pushing things. I'm using weights that I'm been using, right? Not pushing into any new territory. Let me assess the skill around execution on some of these lifts, and you can look at it that way so that you don't quite feel like you're just like going through the motions. Like you have something to focus on that week rather than just mailing it in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. And that's pretty much what I did too. It's just like just get better at form, like body control, breathing, getting in some mobility, more stretching stuff in. So just feeling good, moving, like at least just match what I did the last week and not really push it past that.
Yeah, I think ultimately, if you get to the point where you feel really, really beat up and everything hurts and you don't even like training, that is a deeper hole to get out of versus if you're starting to, you're at a point in your training block where you're starting to feel some of that stuff come on, but it's early on. I think it's easier to catch it and correct course at that point than it is where, my knees hurt, my elbows hurt, I'm low energy, I'm low motivation to train. That's a deeper hole to get out of. So I think in many ways it makes a lot of sense to have a somewhat scheduled deload, not super frequent, not like every fourth week or anything like that, but have a somewhat scheduled deload so you can just stay ahead of it. And again, if you are not pulling yourself so far back, it's not like you're not making no progress. Again, you can look at different things, skill set to progress that week. I think that that's kind of the best of both worlds, in my opinion, and having these deloads in place. And really the whole concept of deloads comes from the strength side of things, the strength sport side of things, right? Where you need that week after accumulation. You've accumulated volume, you've accumulated intensity, load, and you need to kind of pull back and reset your nervous system in order to continue moving forward. And some of that has leaked over into bodybuilding. And I think that there is absolutely some application, but it is, I think, important to note that that did originate on the strength side of things. So interesting stuff, but everybody has to figure out their own way and what works for them. And there is, as always, it depends.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we want to get into our Q&A here. So we've got a couple questions that we're going to get into. The first one is fielded from a YouTube comment, and that was left by Lyric Fitness. He is a faithful supporter supporter, watcher of our videos. So thank you for that. He left a comment on our last video that says, thoughts on pushing weight up and then holding at that weight for a certain length of time. Are people missing out on potential gains by bulking and then cutting too soon? So this is something that I think, yes, he's right. Are people missing out on potential gains by bulking and then cutting too soon? I think that just as a general concept, the newest muscle to be gained, or the newest muscle that you've gained, is essentially the first muscle that will go. So what I like to do with myself and with clients is to have what I call a marination phase. So I want to push body weight up, and ultimately, sometimes that's pushing up into new territory, especially when you're getting your body weight up into new territory, I would say. But we've hit peak mass, so we're at the end of this bulk. And now, we've reached the end of the runway and we need to, go a different direction, whether that's a full blown cutting phase or a little bit of a cleanup just to create more runway to keep growing. Either way, I think at that point in time, what you should do is spend time holding that peak body weight. And what that allows you to do is just solidify and actually make those new gains. I just call it marination, solidify phase, where you actually make that yours. If you just turn around, like you hit this peak body weight and you said, I bulked, the bulk is over, and now I'm going to go into a hard cut, and you immediately just turn around and get into that deficit, I think that you put yourself at more risk to peel off some of that muscle that you have accumulated, versus if you were to just hold that peak weight, continue to expose that new muscle to the loads and make it a part of your body and solidify it. I think you have a much more likelihood of keeping more of that once you do get into a cut. Now, how long should you do a holding phase at the back end of a bulk? This is first and foremost going to be determined by what your timeline is. So if you're in a time crunch, right, and you need to have that turnaround and get into a cut because you have a deadline ahead, I would say as low as 4 weeks or as few as 4 weeks. But I've had people sitting for, 8 to 10 weeks. It just kind of depends. But that's just kind of where I operate, somewhere between 4 and 10 weeks. And then during that solidification phase, I might pull food back a little bit, but it's just aimed at stopping the rate of gain, right? It's not aimed at seeing body weight trend down consistently. It's just, hey, we've reached the end of the body fat runway. We're at the end of the bulk. We don't really want to keep gaining weight because we don't want to keep putting body fat on. So I just want to pull food down to allow that body weight to just kind of level off, and we just hold, but not pull enough food off to consistently see that weight come down. And maybe it comes down a little bit, that's fine, and then levels off, that's cool. But I just don't want to see a consistent downward trend during that phase. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's that's everything right there. Basically just serves as a point in time to let your body weight settle in, like just let it settle into yourself, and your body can get more efficient
Acclimated.
at like managing, yeah, at managing that body weight as well, so it's not just going to disappear right away like you said. But yeah, it'll give your body a chance to improve digestion as well, depending on a high f- how high food got and for how long. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would say.
And then on the back end of a cut, right? So you finish your cut, you've gotten as lean as you wanted to get. It kind of depends with this. Like if you've gotten in single digit body fat, like you probably, I would prefer in that scenario to get body weight, or get food, I should say, get food back up to a place that is, got training in a productive place, and got you feeling pretty good. But there could be some application for people, because I've worked with a couple clients, several clients that have loose skin. So they've walked around heavier for a large portion of their life, and now they've got their stuff together and they've lost weight and they've got some loose skin. So typically with these people, I'm not really pushing them into like crazy lean body fat percentages. But in this case, it can make sense to, when you get to, or, the level of leanness that you were after, you got some loose skin, it can make sense to just take some time and hold that weight, right? And your goal might be like, hey, I want to put some muscle on. But it could make sense if you've got some loose skin to just spend some time there and just try to allow the skin to come back, to kind of, I guess, I'm not using the right words, but to snap back or snap
Yeah.
into that lower body weight, right? And just give it a chance rather than pulling your weight down, you got loose skin, and then immediately driving your body weight back up and stretching it back out, right? That is one scenario in which on the back end of a cut, I would say, hey, let's spend some time here. And, I might work the food up, but it might be a little bit more delicate. Now, like, obviously, depends completely on the person and what they have going on, whether they're lifestyle or a competitive athlete. It all depends, but there is application in, on the back end of a cut. Hold in there for a little while and just seeing what your skin does. And everybody's different. Elasticity and, each person's skin, it varies. I've seen skin come back in a major way and look pretty good where you don't really notice it. But some people, it just, you give it its time and it never really, it never really comes back to being in a great spot.
Yeah, that's a great angle to talk about that from, actually. Never even thought of the skin thing
Yeah.
coming.
Okay. So you got any questions on your end?
Yeah, I got two, and both are from Kelsey. Shout out Kelsey. Thank you for the questions. Thank you to everyone that submits questions, by the way. Even if we don't put up a text box in one of our stories or ask in the podcast or something like that, you can always send questions to either one of us in the YouTube, on Instagram, wherever, and we can discuss it on here. But the first one was, how have you grown since starting your journey? Mentally, emotionally, physically. I could say for me, the biggest thing is confidence. I grew up a shorter, smaller person compared to the kids in my age group and stuff. I was always an athlete, and so it played a role for sure in like playing time and just like overall skill development, everything like that. Like size, if you're playing football, basketball, like it matters to a point. But as far as like it's being in the gym and taking this so seriously and then getting into coaching, like seeing that I can help people, I feel like the gym is something where like what you put in, you will get back out of it. And so you will always get some type of payoff from the work that you put in. And with that comes confidence, because it's like you're over time, you're seeing your body change, you're seeing your weights go up, you're getting stronger, you're noticing changes. And all of that can help with confidence, of course, because it's stuff that it's work that you put in, it's what you've earned. And then just from like the coaching aspect, it's definitely helped me like communicate with different types of people a bit easier. Not everyone understands the same language, the same way you talk to one client may not be the other, or the same way that you talk to another. And so navigating like how to talk to people is something that is a skill I'm getting better at and have gotten better at as I've gone. Yeah, emotionally, I don't really know. I mean, emotionally, I just feel better. I feel better when I'm in the gym. I feel good, like just seeing my body change and seeing my work result in something. So I don't know, emotionally, like I just feel better being in the gym compared to if I wouldn't be in the gym. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, I mean, how have you grown since starting your journey? I guess you could look at that a couple different ways. I mean, of course, the physical side of things, like your physical body is like, yeah, your body changes. You know what I mean? Like you put more muscle on, and that's cool to see. But I think a lot of the real growth can come from the mental side of things, like you touched on. So for me, growing up, uh, I grew up like a chubby kid. I wasn't like, like morbidly obese or anything like that, but I was chubby enough that I didn't want to take my shirt off in the pool. I'd be like walking in the wind and I would want to pull my shirt off of my stomach, so I had a lot of that insecurity in place. So once I got into the gym and saw that I could change my body through my actions and my effort, it definitely gives you some confidence in your abilities. Like once you put that work in and you see these things happening, like it's very, very motivating. And like you almost begin to have like faith in yourself. Like, oh, I can do this. I can change myself if I want to. And then at some point, inevitably, there is going to be some external validation that comes in place, right? Where it's not just you noticing your changes, your physical changes, but other people too. You know, they start asking you, what are you doing? Like, oh, you look like you're getting in shape. And man, the reality of it is that like, as vain as this may sound, like this is the truth of it. People that are more muscular or that are in shape, that display health or fitness or whatever, they get looked at a little bit differently, because ultimately what that exudes or what that shows is that you have control, like you have discipline. You know what I mean? Like you're not just going to be in shape unless you are consistently training and eating well. So other people, they might not say that out to you flat out, but it your body and you know how you take care of yourself says something about you. And so at some point you start getting feedback on that from other people, and that also feels good. And I think that that should make up a small share of like what motivates you, but ultimately it's still something that comes in into factor. I think all of these things combined, like you understanding that you have control over your body and that your efforts and actions matter and can get you something, even if it's not like that, and then other people recognizing that, it pushes up your confidence, and your confidence matters because it's not just confidence in when you look in the mirror at yourself every day. It's also confidence when you walk into a room and you speak to somebody that you don't know. It's confidence at your job. It's confidence in everything that you do in life. And so when your mind is, when you are more confident in your skin, it's going to affect everything that you do. It's going to affect who you are and how you do things. It's the difference between I can't do this and, you know, I'm not sure if I can do it, and like your mindset, it absolutely matters. So that's for me, you know, that's a big part of it, is just the mental confidence. And that's probably what I like more about this process than anything is like I can set a goal in front of myself. I can work on that goal and I can create the outcome that I want. And I love having that control.
Yeah. I think as much as this trains our body, it trains our mind. Like pretty much just as much. Like you said, like there have been times where I will be in an unfamiliar environment, and like normally I would be nervous, normally I would be fearing judgment from certain people, or whatever it is, because I don't know them, and I'm able to directly pull from work I've put in the gym on uncomfortable sets, right? Like you have to find a way to get through this set, and it carries over until I have to find a way to navigate a situation where I'm uncomfortable outside of the gym. So there's so many things where it directly translate into life outside of the gym, that I think it trains everything just as much as it trains your body.
Yeah, the gym exposes you to consistent discomfort, you know, because when you're training hard, like it doesn't exactly feel good in the moment. Like it's hard. You're putting effort in it. It hurts. And you know, that can, you know, teach you to just be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And there are many aspects in life where you are going to be uncomfortable. It could be an uncomfortable conversation. It could be a task that you don't want to do but need to do. And because you are consistently exposing yourself to discomfort, your mind is better adapt to handle it and just be like, yeah, this sucks right now, but I know I need to do this. And if you don't expose yourself to discomfort consistently in some way, shape, or form, whether physical or mental, you just fold over. You just fold over, and you can't get through it. So I think that there's just so much of that that comes through the gym and physical exertion.
Yeah. And I'll say on a slightly different note, if anyone that watches the podcast is in the area too, something that I've directly pulled from, I don't know how many times, is hitting legs with you. The pain that brings my legs. If you need something to pull from, you feel like your gym sessions aren't hitting like that, just ask to do legs with Kevin, and he'll give you something to pull from outside the gym.
It's funny that you say that because I was going through some of my phone gallery, the pictures of my phone, and I landed on the video that we were doing legs on, and I'm on the leg press, and you're just in the background, just like hands on knees, just like keeled over, and
Yeah.
it's funny. It brought me back to that day, but Yeah, man, this stuff, it's so many different lessons that can be learned from just exerting yourself, just giving it all you got. And oftentimes you find that you have a lot more to give than you thought you did, but you have to try to take it there. And sometimes you come up short. That's fine. But oftentimes you'll find like, hey, I went a lot further than I thought I could, but you have to try. On that same thread, I had a client ask me this question in our WhatsApp conversation. Just to give context, this is a client that has been overweight for a large portion of her adult life and is now at a point where she's lost, about 80 pounds. So she's made really, really great progress. And, you know, she is like many people, after having been overweight for so long and had some of those insecurities, she sees the changes in her body, but she looks great, but her mind hasn't quite caught up with where her body is. And so she still has some of those mental tendencies of, being insecure. And, so she asked me this question: do we ever get to a point where we like ourselves? Or will I just have to self talk myself through those moments forever? And those moments, I'm just thinking, are moments of self doubt, moments of insecurity, moments of hyperfixating on certain parts of your body. You know what I mean? And so I'm just going to read off what I responded to her with. So I said, I can only speak to my own experience and thoughts. I grew up chubby and insecure about it, and some of that still lingers, but the intensity of those insecurities and negative thoughts is much, much lower now. For me, it was less about waiting until the day that I liked 100% of what I saw in the mirror and more about moving towards improving my body in the areas that I could control and not tearing myself down in the meantime. Like, check it out. Some might look at me and think above average physique, would love to look like that. But I have areas that I still don't quite like, but have learned to not fixate on. Stretch marks, loose skin on the glutes and lower back. It used to drive me crazy. If I could just get rid of these things, then everything would be perfect. Well, I ain't getting rid of my stretch marks. Those aren't going anywhere. Or the loose skin, not really. But like an artist, I can shape and mold other areas of my body. And that's what I choose to put my energy into, the shit that I can control and change. And then I just closed off with telling her, I promise if you keep going and focus on the things that you can control and change, at some point you will be so proud of the change you've made in those areas that the areas you can't really change won't matter as much to you. You'll still have to bitch slap yourself, bitch slap your negative self talk mind and correct course, just not as often.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think that's something that, at least for myself, I can say I've just accepted that I'll probably always feel the way about certain body parts, myself, whatever it is. And I think there's always going to be those ups and downs. Like there's always going to be those thoughts that come and go. It is just a part of the game. But knowing that they'll pass, and like there's going to be times where you feel great about yourself, and like you really need to not take those moments for granted. Because we do know that there's a lot of ups and downs with this. And yeah, like you said, like working on what you can control and putting so much work into what you can control and not worrying about what you can't, like that's the way that you get through it. That's the way that you navigate it. If you're doing everything in your power to be the best that you can be or to improving a body part, that's that's all that you can do. And then how it develops or how it's going to look or how you're going to look, whatever it is, it's just going to be what it's going to be. But yeah, like that's controlling what you can control and not paying too much mind, not letting it sit to what you can't control. It's the way through.
You got two routes, man. It's good old the half is glass full. The glass is half full, or the glass is half empty. So it's the same glass, it's the same amount of water, but the only difference is how you're looking at this thing and, how you choose to mentally frame it. So I'm big on mindset and perspective with my clients, and you'll hear me talk about that a lot because it matters. It matters a whole lot. And the crazy thing about it is the same way that you have control over your body through your actions and what you eat and the exercise that you do, you have control over your mind and the way that it thinks. It's not easy. Neither is working out, and it doesn't happen overnight. Neither do the gains that you make to your physical body, but through consistent effort and course correction, you can train your mind and your thoughts to stay more half full than half empty. You just have to be aware of it, and you have to catch yourself, and you have to make the choice, because it's a choice. You can create thoughts in your mind right now. You can have a thought that pops into your mind, and you didn't have any, it just came into your mind. I'm ugly. You can immediately in your own mind after that say, you know what? No, I'm not ugly. I'm all right. I'm doing all right. I'm not a bad looking guy. And you can course correct. Which one do you want to go with? It's totally up to you. You got to make that choice.
It's about what thoughts you feed more. The ones that you feed more, the ones that you focus on more, are of course going to be more predominant or just happen more. So I think it's important to realize too, like when you're out of these moments of self doubt too, like look back on times that you felt that way and like see if there's a pattern. Cause I know for me, anytime where I have a day where I'm like, I just feel like shit, I feel horrible. I don't like the way that I look at all. I know usually it's followed by or weeks of feeling like great. And so when you're feeling those things like in those moments, you can be like, okay, wait, I know that this happens for a day or two. There's a trend there. I know in the coming days or once I get a couple good sessions under my belt, I'm gonna feel great again. So it's something that you can start to like look forward to is like, okay, I have days like this, normally followed by great days. So get through this, let's get to the great days now. Like just feel it, think about whatever it is, and know you're going to get through it eventually.
Yep. Not every day is going to be a great day. Not every thought is going to be a good thought, but you just need to be aware of it. On that note, I was actually just talking to a client that is, she's got some stress in her life right now and having a hard time sleeping. And I told her, I said, hey, what is helpful for me is to, journal. So the place that a lot of people find themselves in when they have a lot on their plate, and they lay their head down at night to go to sleep. And now they have all these racing thoughts in their minds, all these things that they have to do, all this whatever that's in their life. If the only point in time you allow yourself to actually think about those things is when you're trying to go to sleep, you're going to have a hard time sleeping, right? So I was telling her, I was like, hey, it might be a good idea to just 5 minutes, set a timer and just jot some stuff down. It doesn't even have to be cohesive or make any sense. You can literally just vomit these kind of negative things or things that are on your mind, got the wheels turning, just vomit it out, right? And I told her that that's kind of what I do. And I don't do it all the time because I don't need to do it all the time. Right. So, a lot of people talk about, oh, you should journal every day and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to fucking journal every day. I'm look at my journal as a tool. So I would journal when I need to. And this journal, if, whenever I start back journaling, I always go back and look at like a couple of the previous entries, right? And so we were just talking about like you're gonna have bad thoughts, you're gonna have good thoughts, and good days and bad days. And usually, if you're having a couple bad days, bad thoughts, bad mindset, whatever, good days are right around the corner, right? So when I go in and I start journaling, because of how I use this journal, every entry is not good. It's all like, this is wrong. This is what's going wrong in my life. And, in the moment when I'm writing this stuff, it feels like this is, the end of the world. This is like all the shit that's going wrong. Like the outlook is just bleak. But when I actually go back and like look at this after the fact, after being removed from it, I don't even remember if I didn't read these things, these problems that I had that were big problems at the time. If I didn't go back and read them, I wouldn't even fucking remember them. Right. So
Yeah,
now that I'm past that, it's not even, and it really is just that old saying, like, this too shall pass. You know what I mean? Like, you just need to put the right foot forward, say, hey, I accept it. This is what it is. I'm just going to keep moving forward because you know what? The day with sunshine and warm weather is right around the corner. And I choose to just keep moving forward and until that day comes. 'Cause I know it's coming.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So we did pretty good on that. What else you got? You got another one, right?
This is also from Kelsey. Advice that you would give your younger self. Am I going? You going?
Yeah. Well, my younger self was crazy, motherfucker. Crazy. So I made a lot of mistakes when I was younger. So whenever I hear that, like advice to my younger self, and I think I've said this on other recordings that we've done, but take time to put um, impulse in action. When you're younger, like you don't really think about consequences. You just, have something come into your head, an idea, an emotion, or whatever, and you act on it. And that impulsive action got me into a lot of trouble. And so, now looking back, if I could have just taken, and you just, when you're young, you almost don't have the ability to do that. It's something that comes like later in life when you look back on it, and you learn it as you get older. But that is my big thing, is learn to put time between the thought that pops in your head, I should do this or I should not do this, and when you actually do it, right? Because that can give you enough time to almost get some of that like post nut clarity, where like you're seeing clear now, and it's like, okay, that's not, I don't want to do that, I don't want to go that direction. But if that action happens really close to that impulse, you're just not going to grant yourself that opportunity, you know.
Yeah, but it's interesting because my answer would probably be the opposite of that. I've always been like an overthinker. I would purposely overcomplicate things or just think about doing something, think about starting so much that I would end up spending weeks, months, even years like just thinking about a thing and not actually trying it. In terms of like learning a new skill or just starting some type of venture that I think would like benefit me as a person or anything like that. And I would just overthink it. I would just, because it's something that's unfamiliar, I want to try to see what are the problems that could arise. Think of the feelings that I'm going to be feeling. Think about being uncomfortable with it. How am I going to handle it? Just all of the things that I could think about pertaining to this thing. But I just like looking back, I just wonder how much time I could have been progressing that I spent thinking. And so I think there's a ton of value in just making a decision, starting something, trying to learn something new, or putting yourself in that uncomfortable situation and just figuring out the rest later. Something that you told me was like you surgery all that you want, but until you start practicing, like you're not really going to know. And so that would be my advice to my younger self, is just stop thinking so much, like just do it and just see where it lands you, see what happens along the way, figure it out as it goes.
Yeah. I could say that same thing for me too. I think this question is hard for me because my younger self was different than a lot of people's younger selves. Like, couldn't even me telling you like I was, a firecracker doesn't even begin to, it's the tip of the iceberg. Like I got into some really like just not great stuff, but put my family through a lot of stuff, and so that's when I hear that my younger self, like I live with a lot of that. And I've for a long time it was like regret, like what if I did this, or what if I didn't make that decision, or whatever. And so that's the first thing that pops into my head, is like, hey man, like don't be dumb, like don't make dumb decisions. And if I had have just thought about it a little bit more, might be different. But now with where my life is at, I wouldn't want it to be different. Everything works out the way that it should. But I also have many instances that align with what you said, where I did overthink things, missed opportunities, missed positive opportunities. If I could have just taken action and not tried to have everything together, not tried to have the master plan completely laid out, but just like, hey, take that next step and just like figure it out as you go. That probably what you said is going to be more valuable for most people than what I said, because a lot of people do that. They overthink, or they say, I'll wait until the perfect day when everything lines up and the stars align, and that's when I'll start, and that's when I'll do it. And life is such, it moves fast, man. Especially the older you get, life moves fast. The day becomes week, becomes month, becomes years, and you miss these opportunities. So you have to just start moving forward and just figure the shit out as you go. And that is something that's definitely, even for me today, like I love planning, I love having things laid out, but there's so many things, it's like I just, none of that matters, because the most growth that you're going to have is through throwing yourself into something, making mistakes, and then saying, okay, well I did that this time, last time, now I know not to do that. And that's where you really can pick up some momentum and propel yourself forward.
Yeah, there are certain little tricks that I like to do when I do catch myself being like, I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm gonna try I'm gonna try to do XYZ, and it's literally eliminating those words I'm thinking about or I'm trying to. Just decide, like, are you gonna do it or not? If you say that you're gonna do it, cool. It's your chance. Like, now you have to do it. You said it, you made it real. If you're thinking about it and you're kind of leaning towards it's not gonna happen, then just don't say it at all.
Saying I'll try, I'll give it my best is a safe thing to say, because if you just said I'll try, I'll give it my best, like yeah, that makes sense, but it also gives you an out. Versus if you say I'm going to, I will, right? Because then you've made a very black and white commitment, and it's basically at that point it's either failure or success. But that pressure of knowing you made the commitment for a lot of people is going to force you to perform in a wildly different way than if there was nothing at stake, where you just said, I don't care if I essentially, I don't care if I fail. I don't care if I succeed because I didn't say that I was going to one way or the other. Right. So just that little mental, right? Like how you speak to yourself, how you tell yourself you're going to do things, it can have impact for sure.
Yes, sir.
And I think we have one more, right?
Yeah, it was a DM that I got, which was he was asking if I was looking to coach any enhanced athletes, and we had like a pretty solid, pretty lengthy conversation about it. And eventually, I would love to do that eventually. Right now, just with my experience, I still believe I have a lot to learn, especially regarding that stuff where there can be real consequences if things go wrong. That's the goal, is to just keep learning, get better at this stuff, learn more about that realm, and to be able to do it at a high level as well. But I wanted to ask you, like, how early on did you start coaching enhanced athletes? What was your first experience like? What did you do to like prepare for that?
So first preface this by saying, the point at which you start. So like right now for you, right? Like you are just dipping your toes into this side of things and you are learning, right? Even when you get to the point where you feel like you have a good grasp on all of the fundamentals and have a good understanding of how these various compounds work, not only in isolation but together, and you start taking on clients and guiding them in that, years down the road your knowledge base is going to change. It's going to change because you are going to continue learning, you are going to continue experimenting with yourself, and you are also going to have the data that's pulled from your clients and their experiences. So there's, just like we were talking about, there's basically never going to be like a perfect time where you feel like 100% like you know everything, because you don't, you never will. Like you're going to keep learning and evolving as things come up and as you handle people, and do this on your side of things personally as well. And so for me, I felt pretty comfortable with it right out of the gate, because before I ever jumped into the world of PEDs, I did, a couple, like, I think I researched for like 2 years, like a year or two, just reading everything that I could read about, the various compounds, how they interact, cycle design, all this stuff. And at that time, a lot of the information out there wasn't where it's at now, but still I had a pretty good understanding before I ever did anything myself, how things slot in and how things, operate. And so, then like with my own personal experience and basically to be honest with you, being fascinated with it, I find the PEDs, I find them fascinating, and I enjoy researching. I enjoy learning. I enjoy experimenting. So for me, it was just something that, like, if I've got spare time or if I'm, whatever, like I'm diving into this stuff. So I'm absorbing a ton of this information. And so by the time that I started coaching full time, I had a pretty good grasp on, what needs to be in place. And so, again, even then, at that point in time, whenever I started online coaching full time years ago, my knowledge base then is not where it's at now. You know what I mean? So it just evolves over time, and you just have to, keep learning, keep moving forward, and yeah, there's not going to be And I wish I could give you like exact things like you should know this, you should know that, you know. And ultimately, if you find yourself in a place as a coach where you are, you know, taking on enhanced athletes, like I would tell them, like, you know, if I would be upfront with them, if you don't feel completely confident in like what you are telling them, I mean, maybe don't take them on for that portion of it, but also say like, hey, you know, like this is where I'm at. This is my skill level, and you know, I know what I know, and you know, as long as you can give me feedback, we can put our heads together and you know move this in the right direction. But at the base of it, there's a lot of simple things that need to be in place, and you know, a big part of it is like two things, just like how everybody reacts to compounds is completely person dependent. So like you kind of need to listen to what their previous experiences are if they've already been doing this stuff, right? Because that matters, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also like what is happening on the blood work level. So that's a big part of it, is like getting familiar with the blood work, getting familiar with like looking at like some of the health parameters associated with a chronic PED usage, and being able to not only give them suggestions, because we don't ever want to like prescribe cycles, right? But like
Right.
give them suggestions in the anabolic side, but also be able to understand like what impact this has on their lab work, and make sure that you aren't doing any unneeded harm to them. And a lot of that harm side of things, like, you know, does come down to what their level of risk is, like what level of risk they're willing to accept. And that's different for everybody. You know what I mean? If you have aspirations of being an IFBB pro, you know, there is going to be inherently more risk associated with that, because, you know, you're gonna probably be using higher amounts of androgens, right? And all sorts of different things. And it's not to say that you're just automatically going to run into that risk, but I was talking to you the other day, and it's basically just like, you know, if you are speeding, right, essentially using more anabolics, you're going at a high rate of speed, you're not guaranteed to wreck, right? You're not guaranteed to, you know, get a speeding ticket, but these things become more likely than if you were not speeding and you were going the speed limit, right? So I think all of that is just important to keep in mind when you are, you know, handling clients that are enhanced, is getting that information at baseline. What sort of risk are you willing to accept? And that can guide some of your decision making, and you know how you are guiding them with what they want to do, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you know, in a way, like starting my own PED usage and stuff, like that's basically, you know, I had a base knowledge about, you know, what the compounds do, what to expect, but I wanted to get a firsthand look at what's happening, what's going on, how things are done. So me
You
starting my own stuff was the start of being able to coach people that are enhanced.
you are the surgeon, and you are at present operating on yourself.
Right, right.
But it's still, nonetheless, it is experience. And for me, I pull from a big experience pool, because I've done so many different things. I've had high test, low test. I've used pretty much every anabolic you can think of. I've done some really like reckless things, like I guess you would call them reckless, but all in the name of just experimenting, because I'm fascinated with it. And so I can pull from a lot of that. And that's not to say that you have to do those things, right? But
Right.
it is experience that I have nonetheless, and being able to guide clients down that road, you know.
Yeah.
All
Did
right.
you
You
have
got
anything?
anything else, brother?
I was about to ask you the same thing. I think we got to everything.
I think that's all we got. Yeah.
Beautiful.
All right.
Well, we'll wrap it up then. Thank you to everyone that is stays involved with the podcast, watching, sharing, liking, commenting, asking questions. Because of you guys, we have stuff to talk about and discuss. So thank you to everyone that stays involved.
Yes, sir. Drop us a comment, give us a like, hit the subscribe button. Talk to you soon.
See you next time.
Adios.